I have compiled a list of 25 of the best cashback credit cards that are in existence, and my mission in this video is to rank every single one of these cards from best to worst so you know which cashback credit cards that you should get. So in this video, I'm going to go through each of those 25 cashback credit cards individually. I'll discuss the core details on each of those cards, the specific value that that card has, and then ultimately I'm going to rank each card from S tier and the very best to dumpster tier and the very worst. So as always, we're just gonna hop right into the video, but real quick, if you do enjoy videos just like this one, then do me a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe down below because it's a free and easy way to help support my channel. Before we get into each of those cashback credit cards, let's discuss my ranking system so we can understand how I'm going to rank each of these cards. I've made ranking videos on my channel in the past for like American Express cards and for hotel cards, but I would say that those videos were a little bit easier to make because there's more variable benefits across those cards. A lot of times, cashback credit cards are just inherently less variant, so they have similar value, $0 annual fees, and I'm gonna have to look a little bit deeper in order to make a ranking. So some of the factors that I'm going to be considering when I'm making my ranking for each of these cashback credit cards is going to be welcome bonus differences, point multiplier exposure, ecosystem upside in terms of converting cashback rewards into travel rewards, and overall, what makes each of these cards unique. I do acknowledge that I am a little bit biased because I am typically on team travel when discussing credit cards, so I'm definitely going to prioritize the cashback cards that give you that ecosystem upside in terms of being able to use those points for travel as well. So just consider that when you're understanding my rankings. In terms of what those rankings are, S tier is the absolute best, A tier is excellent, B tier is above average, C tier is average, D tier is below average, and then dumpster tier is absolutely horrible. Let's hop right into it by discussing Citi, and we're gonna start off with a bang because we're going to discuss the Citi Custom Cash, which I think is one of the best cashback credit cards that is out there. The Citi Custom Cash has a $0 annual fee, and then it has a welcome bonus of being able to receive $200 cash back if you spend $1,500 or more in the first 6 months. The $200 cash back from the welcome bonus is actually going to be given to you in the form of 20,000 Citi thank you points, which can have additional upside. If you also have a card like the Citi Strata Premier, you can transfer those 20,000 points up to that card and then out to Citi's travel partners. The point multipliers are going to be to receive 5% cash back on your top eligible spend category on up to $500 spent per billing cycle, 4% back on hotels, car rentals, and attractions that are booked through the Citi travel portal, and then 1% back on everything else. The best use case for the Citi Custom Cash is to use it as your dedicated credit card for one specific spending category, and then get 5% back in that one category. I'm going to put the Citi Custom Cash card in the S tier because I love the flexibility to get that high multiplier in whatever category that you want, and then the upside with getting even higher value within the Citi ecosystem as well. Again, if you leverage another card like the Citi Strata Premier to transfer out to travel partners. The only rebuttal that I would have to ranking the Citi Custom Cash in the S tier is there is a cap of $500 spent per billing cycle for that 5% category. So that could be a little bit limiting just depending on what that category is for you. But you could get around that by having yourself and your player 2 getting the custom cash to increase that cap to $1,000 per billing cycle. Next up, we have the Citi Double Cash, which also has a $0 annual fee, and it has a welcome bonus of being able to receive $200 cash back after spending $1,500 or more in the first 6 months of having the card. Similar to the Citi Custom Cash, the Citi Double Cash is going to receive that $200 cash back in the form of 20,000 Citi thank you points, which again is going to offer that additional travel upside. The value on the Citi Double Cash is pretty straightforward. You're basically just going to get 2x cash back on all purchases that you make, which makes the Citi Double Cash an option as a catch-all credit card. I'm going to put the Citi Double Cash in the C tier because it's all right, and the Citi ecosystem upside is nice, but there's nothing too special about this card either. Next up, we have the Citi Costco Anywhere Visa card, which, you guessed it, also has a $0 annual fee. Obviously, this card is specifically going to be built for people who shop at Costco frequently, and you actually do need to have a Costco membership before you even apply for this card. In terms of the point multipliers, you'll get 4% back on gas and EV charging for the first $7,000 spent per year, 3% back on restaurants and eligible travel, 2% back on all other purchases from Costco and Costco.com, and then 1x back on everything else. This might ruffle some feathers from you Costco fans out there, but I'm actually going to put this card in the C tier. I can see the validity for getting the card if you exclusively shop at Costco, and the point multipliers are pretty strong. But there is nothing that amazing about the card as well, and there's no travel ecosystem for additional upside. Next up, we have the Discover It cashback card, which, like all the other cashback credit cards on this list so far, also has a $0 annual fee. The welcome bonus on this card is actually really unique. You'll get an unlimited cashback match during your first year of having the card, which I think can especially be valuable just given the context of this being a popular starter card for a lot of people just starting their credit card journeys or college students. And so a lot of your spend and maybe all of it could go on this card during your first year. Beyond year one, you will get point multipliers such as 5x back on rotating quarterly categories, which includes popular spend categories like grocery stores, gas stations, and restaurants. And then you'll get 1x back on everything else. I'm going to rank the Discover It cashback card in the B tier because I do think the welcome bonus is unique. It's definitely a feasible starter card. There's no downside, but there isn't any sort of ecosystem upside, so I say this card is slightly above average among other cashback cards. Next up, let's get into some Capital One cashback credit cards, and we're going to start with the Capital One Savor One. The Capital One Savor One has been on the rise recently, and it's been floated around as a popular alternative to the American Express Gold Card. You'll get point multipliers of 10% back on Uber and Uber Eats, 5% back on hotels and car rentals booked through the Capital One travel portal, 3% back on dining, entertainment, popular streaming services, and grocery stores, and then 1% back on everything else. The Savor One has no foreign transaction fees as well, so it's totally feasible to use this card while you're traveling internationally. Plus, you will also have the ability to convert the cash back that you earn on the Capital One Savor One into Capital One miles, which can give you higher travel upside if you also have a card like the Capital One Venture or Capital One Venture X. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put the Capital One Savor One in the A tier because you do have potential travel upside and solid point multiplier exposure, but it does have a standard welcome bonus and there's nothing crazy unique which prevents it from the S tier. Next up, we have the Capital One Quicksilver cards. There are 4 different types of the Capital One Quicksilver card. So there's the Capital One Quicksilver secured card for people with fair credit, the Capital One Quicksilver One rewards card for people with fair credit, the Capital One Quicksilver rewards card for people with good credit, and then the Capital One Quicksilver rewards card for people with excellent credit. Especially a card like the Quicksilver secured card for fair credit can be an option for people just starting out or needing to build their credit. It's very easy to get approved in comparison to a lot of other, even like beginner credit cards that are out there. And you'll basically just need to submit a minimum $200 required deposit as part of that approval process. But in general, I wouldn't say that the Capital One Quicksilver cards are very desirable, and even one of them has a random $39 annual fee. If you were to pick one of the Capital One Quicksilver cards, then I would go with the Quicksilver Rewards card for excellent credit, since it's the only one that carries a welcome offer, plus you'll get 1.5x back on all purchases. But in terms of why the Capital One Quicksilver cards can actually be a major problem, is first of all, it's a very confusing upgrade process. So if you wanted to upgrade your Quicksilver card to a more desirable Capital One card, it's really hard to do so, meaning you might be stuck with your Quicksilver card. And the reason that that's a problem is because of Capital One's 2-card limit for personal cards, meaning you can only have 2 personal Capital One credit cards at one time. So if you have a Capital One Quicksilver card, that would prevent you from getting the Capital One Duo, so the combination of the Savor One and Venture X. In terms of my ranking for the Capital One Quicksilver cards, I'm going to put them in the dumpster tier because there's not really every reason to get one of the Quicksilver cards, since there are plenty of other better beginner or starter $0 annual fee cards that are out there, and even ones on this list that are much better. So having one of these cards could create a barrier for you and your future Capital One credit card plans, and you might even be confused on which of these options you should even get in the first place. On a better note, let's get into the Chase ecosystem because they have some of the best cashback credit cards that are out there. And let's start with the Chase Freedom Flex. The Chase Freedom Flex is a $0 annual fee Chase credit card that gives you a welcome bonus of receiving $200 cash back when you spend $500 or more in the first 3 months. The point multipliers on the Freedom Flex are going to be 5% back on rotating quarterly categories, 5% back on travel booked through the Chase travel portal, 3% back on dining, 3% back on drugstores, and then 1% back on everything else. The unique value on the Freedom Flex is going to be the 5x back on rotating quarterly categories, which even includes some really popular spending categories like grocery stores or gas stations. And the nice thing about the Freedom Flex is that you're going to earn all of your rewards in the form of Chase Ultimate Rewards points, which means you can transfer those points upstream to a card like the Sapphire Preferred, which unlocks higher travel upside in terms of having access to Chase's travel partners. I'm going to put the Chase Freedom Flex in the A tier because I love these $0 fee Chase credit cards that can be utilized as strong cashback cards, but at the same time also have that additional travel upside if you want it. However, I didn't rank the Freedom Flex as high as S tier like the Citi Custom Cash, just because you have less control over the rotating categories. Next up, we have the other Chase Freedom card, which also has a $0 annual fee, which is the Chase Freedom Unlimited. The Chase Freedom Unlimited has the same welcome bonus as the Freedom Flex, so to receive $200 cash back when you spend $500 or more in the first 3 months. The point multipliers on the Chase Freedom Unlimited are going to be to receive 5x back on travel booked through the Chase Travel Portal, 3x back on dining and drugstores, and then 1.5x back on everything else. The unique value on the Freedom Unlimited is going to be to get 1.5x back on all purchases, so you can use the Freedom Unlimited as an option as a catch-all credit card. Just like with the Freedom Flex, you're going to earn all of those points on the Freedom Unlimited in the form of Chase Ultimate Rewards points, which gives you that potential travel upside. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put the Chase Freedom Unlimited in the B tier. The Freedom Unlimited is a great building block as part of the Chase trifecta to earn Chase points, but 1.5x back as a catch-all multiplier isn't actually that competitive, so long term you'll probably eventually have another card that will replace it. Next up on my list is the Chase Amazon Prime card. The Chase Amazon Prime card does have a $0 annual fee, but the caveat to that is that you do have to have a Prime membership to get the card, and Prime memberships cost $139 per year. Upon approval for the Chase Amazon Prime card, you will get a $150 Amazon gift card that's going to be automatically applied to your Amazon gift card balance. You'll get point multipliers of 5% back on anything associated with Amazon, so Amazon.com, Amazon Fresh, and Whole Foods, as well as 5% back on Chase travel purchases, and then 2% back at gas stations, restaurants, and local transit, with 1% back on everything else. Obviously, Amazon is a major retailer that a lot of people spend a lot of money on, so the unique value is going to be that 5% back on Amazon specific purchases. However, for at least 1 quarter per year, you're also going to get that same exposure to Amazon as a rotating category on the Chase Freedom Flex. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to rank the Chase Amazon Prime card in the B tier, because it does have high exposure to Amazon and it's also a Visa card, which can add to the diversity of its use. Okay, now we have the Bank of America Customized Cash, which like a lot of cards on this list has a $0 annual fee. The Customized Cash card has a $200 bonus when you spend $1,000 or more in the first 3 months of having the card, and then the point multipliers are going to be for 3% cash back in the category of your choice, which does include categories like gas and EV charging stations, dining, travel, drugstores and pharmacies, or home improvement and furnishings. In addition to that choice category, you'll get 2% cash back at grocery stores and wholesale clubs, and then 1% back on everything else. However, there's also some specific unique value on this card, and that's through the Bank of America Preferred Rewards membership, because based on how much money you have in a Bank of America investment account, you can get 25 to 75% more cash back in those categories. So in other words, you could get a multiplier of up to 5.25 in that choice category. In terms of my ranking, there is a decent amount of parity with these no annual fee credit cards, so I'll reward the uniqueness of the Preferred Rewards program and the flexibility of the choice category, and put this card in the A tier. Next up, we have a very popular and trendy card, which is the Apple Card. The Apple Card has a $0 annual fee, and then it has a welcome offer of receiving $100 in bonus daily cash when you spend $500 or more in the first 2 months of having the card. The point multipliers on the card are to receive 3% cash back on all purchases with Apple and at select merchants, specifically when you use the card for Apple Pay, 2% back on all purchases when you pay with the Apple Card using Apple Pay, and then 1% back on all purchases when you use the physical card or when Apple Pay is not accepted. What this means is that you should never use the physical card, and you're effectively getting a 2% catch-all card when you use the card for Apple Pay. And then in terms of the value that you're actually going to get from the card, you're going to get rewards in the form of daily cash, which can offset purchases that you make with Apple Pay and makes this card an option as a catch-all card. For my ranking, I'm going to be putting this card in the D tier, because you don't want to get fooled by the shiny, popular Apple Card, because all it really is a 2% cashback credit card, which isn't unique at all from a lot of other cards that are out there, and there isn't any upside in the form of better point multipliers or travel upside from the points, So it's really just not a very good card. Next up, we have the PayPal Mastercard. The PayPal Mastercard has a $0 annual fee, and then you'll get point multipliers of 3% cash back when you check out with PayPal, and then 1.5% cash back on all other purchases. So if you have an online business where you utilize PayPal for payments, or maybe you shop for your groceries online and you can use PayPal for those purchases as well, then the 3% category could actually be valuable. In terms of how you'll actually have access to the cashback rewards that you'll be earning, you'll have access to those rewards about 3 days after a purchase, and then you can use those rewards to pay credit card statements, transfer to a linked bank account, or fund your PayPal account. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put this card in the D tier as well, because yes, I could see the validity for having this card if you typically pay with PayPal, but the earning rate outside of that is 1.5% back, which isn't too great. There's also no upside on the cashback that you're earning, and that everything else category used to be 2% back, so it's actually gotten worse based on a refresh about a year ago. Next up, we are going to get into some American Express cashback credit cards, and we're going to start with the Amex Blue Cash Everyday. Like a lot of the cards on this list, the Blue Cash Everyday has a $0 annual fee. But then it also has a welcome bonus of being able to receive a $200 bonus when you spend $2,000 or more in the first 6 months of having the card. The $200 bonus is going to be earned in the form of reward dollars or cash back, which is consistent with all of the other rewards that you're going to earn from the point multipliers on this card as well. The point multipliers on this card are going to be to earn 3% cash back on US grocery stores and up to the first $6,000 spent, 3% back on US retail purchases, which is also on up to the first $6,000 spent, 3% back on US gas stations, which, you guessed it, is also on up to the first $6,000 spent, and then 1% cash back on all other purchases. And then something that is pretty unique for a card with a $0 annual fee is you'll actually get an $84 Disney bundle credit, which is split up into $7 monthly statement credits. For my ranking on this card, I'm going to put it in the B tier because unfortunately there's no significant upside with the rewards being earned in the form of cashback, but it does have decent 3x point multipliers, and the fact that the card has a credit too is pretty unique. Now we have the Amex Blue Cash Preferred, which is actually one of the only credit cards on this list that has an annual fee, because you'll have a $0 annual fee during the first year and then a $95 annual fee for every year after that. The Blue Cash Preferred has a welcome bonus of being able to receive $250 cash back when you spend $3,000 or more in the first 6 months of having the card. Again, same as with the Blue Cash Everyday card, the rewards are going to be earned in the form of reward dollars, which can then be redeemed for cash back. The point multipliers are going to be for 6x back at US supermarkets and up to the first $6,000 spent, 6% back on US streaming services, 3% back on transit purchases, 3% back at US gas stations, and then 1% back on everything else. Just like on the Blue Cash Everyday, you'll also get an $84 Disney bundle credit, which is going to be split up into $7 monthly statement credits. If you want to, you also will have the opportunity to downgrade the Blue Cash Preferred to the Blue Cash Everyday, which again has a $0 annual fee. So there is a path to downgrade this annual fee card to a no annual fee card with no downside while still keeping your credit history open, which is a positive. For my ranking, I'm going to put the Blue Cash Preferred in the A tier because you will have the ability to take advantage of the $0 introductory annual fee during the first year, and then have the ability to downgrade that card after year 1 to the Amex Blue Cash Everyday. The one caveat is that I have heard that Amex does not like it if you downgrade that card before the first $95 annual fee actually posts to your account. Next up, we have the Kroger Rewards World Elite card. The Kroger Rewards World Elite card has a $0 annual fee, but it does not currently have any welcome bonus. The point multipliers on the Kroger Rewards Mastercard are going to be for 5% cash back on mobile wallet and Kroger Pay transactions, 2% cash back at all Kroger stores, and then 1% cash back on everything else. So the key value here is going to be that 5% back on mobile wallet purchases, because the accessibility of places that accept mobile wallets as a form of payment is just continuing to rise. So especially if you live in a major area and that's pretty accessible to you, then that category is actually really strong. For my ranking, I'm going to put this card in the A tier because considering most places, at least that I'm used to, accept mobile wallets, you could theoretically be getting 5% cash back on most of your purchases with this card, which is super strong. Next up, we have the Verizon Visa card. The Verizon Visa card, like a lot of other credit cards on this list, does not have an annual fee. And then this card also has no foreign transaction fees as well. You'll get a $250 statement credit, which can be redeemed for cash back after just one singular purchase on the card in the first 90 days. which is pretty unique considering that most welcome bonuses have required spend. Then in terms of the point multipliers, you'll get multipliers of 4% back on grocery store and gas station purchases, 3% back on dining, 2% back on Verizon purchases, and then 1% back on everything else. If you sign up for Verizon's AutoPay to pay your cell phone bill with this credit card as well, you could get up to $20 off your cell phone bill every single month. For my ranking, I'm going to put the Verizon Visa card in the B tier because they do have really competitive point multipliers, especially in those 4x categories for grocery stores and gas stations. But the upside is capped since there's no travel ecosystem within Verizon. And I wouldn't really say that Verizon is up there as one of the most reliable credit card issuers anyway. Next up, we have the Venmo Cashback credit card. The Venmo Cashback credit card has a $0 annual fee. Right now, there's no public welcome bonus that is available. Sometimes there are welcome bonuses, but those are typically targeted, so there's less control over them. The point multipliers are for 3% cash back on your top eligible spending category, 2% cash back on your second highest spending category, and then 1% cash back on everything else. This is a pretty unique point earning structure that draws some parallels to the Citi custom cash that I discussed earlier because you have the flexibility to choose specific categories. So if you wanted to, you could make dining your highest spending category and grocery stores your second, or just choose whatever you want it to be. I don't know about you, but I do actually use Venmo a lot, especially when I go out to eat with friends or something like that. So it is pretty convenient that all of the cash back would just route to your Venmo account. The Venmo card is not the best for traveling overseas because you have to give them a notification or your purchases might be blocked, and then you're not able to do any online purchases while you're traveling overseas as well. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put the Venmo cashback credit card in the B tier because there are some good things and I like the flexibility with the point earning structure, but there are some limitations as well. All right, now let's get into Wells Fargo, which is a credit card issuer that's been on the rise. And let's start with the Wells Fargo Active Cash. The Wells Fargo Active Cash has a $0 annual fee and has a welcome bonus of being able to receive $200 cash back when you spend $500 or more in the first 3 months of having the card. The point multipliers on the Active Cash are pretty straightforward, and that's to receive 2% cash back on all purchases. So basically, the Active Cash card is going to be a good option as a catch-all card, but the downside is you can't actually convert the rewards that you earn on that card up to a card like the Wells Fargo Autograph Journey, so there's no travel upside with the rewards that you're earning. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put this card in the C tier because 2% on everything is a solid rate for a catch-all card. But again, there's nothing special about this card either. Next up, we have the Wells Fargo Autograph card, which has a $0 annual fee. The Autograph card has a welcome bonus of being able to receive 20,000 points when you spend $1,000 or more in the first 3 months of having the card. The point multipliers are really strong as you'll get 3x back on restaurants, travel, gas stations, transit, popular streaming services, and phone plans, and then 1x back on everything else. However, not only are those point earning categories already super strong, but the rewards that you're going to be earning on the Wells Fargo Autograph can actually be transferred out to Wells Fargo's new travel partners, which includes partners like Air France, Avianca, or Iberia. And so this gives you additional travel upside. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put this card in the S tier because it's the perfect combination of strong point earning and travel upside. Plus, it has 0 downside with no annual fee as well. Now let's discuss the Wells Fargo Attune card, which has a $0 annual fee as well, and is one of the newest cashback credit cards to come onto the market. The welcome bonus is to receive a $100 cash rewards bonus when you spend $500 or more in the first 3 months. Plus, Wells Fargo will donate $50 to Capital Link, which is a nonprofit organization and is a cool perk. The point multipliers on the card are pretty creative and unique, so there's basically 3 sets of different types of categories that you'll get 4% cash back on. So to start with, you'll get 4% cash back on self-care, which includes things like spas or gym memberships. You'll get 4% cash back on sports, recreation, and entertainment, so like pet care, gardening, or sports equipment. And then also 4% back on planet-friendly purchases like commuter expenses or EV charging. The best thing about this card is that the rewards that you are earning can be transferred up to the Wells Fargo Autograph Journey or other Wells Fargo travel cards, which allows for greater travel upside and being able to use Wells Fargo's travel partners. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put this card in the A tier because the point multipliers aren't always covered by other cards, which offers a sweet spot opportunity with the Attune card. And then there's travel upside on the card as well. All right, now let's get into U.S. Bank, and we're going to start by discussing the U.S. Bank Altitude Go, which has a $0 annual fee. The U.S. Bank Altitude Go has a welcome bonus of being able to receive 20,000 bonus points when you spend $1,000 or more in the first 3 months. Then the point multipliers are for 4x back on dining, 2x back on streaming services and grocery stores, 2x back on gas stations, and then 1x back on everything else. If you utilize the U.S. Bank Altitude Go for an annual streaming subscription, you'll get a $15 credit towards that service as well. One thing that you might have noticed is that you're going to get 4x back on dining with this card, which is the same rate as with the Amex Gold card. So that could be a really strong value prop for this card as well. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put this card in the B tier due to the solid point multipliers and especially the ability to use it as your go-to dining card. However, the upside is limited due to U.S. Bank not having any travel partners. Now let's discuss the U.S. Bank Altitude Connect, which has a $0 annual fee during the first year, and then a $95 annual fee for every year after that. The welcome bonus is going to be to receive 20,000 bonus points after you spend $1,000 or more in the first 3 months. You'll get point multipliers of 5x back on prepaid hotels and car rentals booked through the U.S. Bank Altitude Rewards Center, 4x back on travel and at gas stations and EV charging stations, 2x back on dining, streaming services, and grocery stores, and then 1x back on everything else. You'll also get Visa signature benefits, a credit for TSA PreCheck or global entry, and a complimentary Priority Pass Select membership, which can get you into over 1,500 airport lounges worldwide. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put this card in the C tier. There's huge positives and negatives, so on both sides. The positive is going to be the earning categories, and then the negative is having an annual fee for a cashback credit card when there are plenty of similar $0 fee options that are out there. Next up, we have the U.S. Bank Cash Plus card, which has a $0 annual fee. The welcome bonus is to receive a $200 rewards bonus when you spend $1,000 or more in the first 3 months of having the card. The point multipliers are to receive 5% cash back on your first $2,000 in combined purchases on 2 spending categories that you choose, 2% cash back on 1 everyday category that you choose, and then 1% cash back on everything else. In terms of the choice categories, for the first 2 spending categories that you choose to get 5% back on, that can include categories like fast food, TV, internet and streaming services, cell phone, home utilities, department stores, and electronic stores. And then for the everyday category, you can choose categories like grocery stores, gas stations, or dining. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put the U.S. Bank Cash Plus card in the S tier because you have 2 categories to choose from to get 5% back on. Plus, if you want to choose categories that you might not get exposure to with other credit cards, you can do that. So you could choose a category like utilities, for example. Obviously, the only downside is there's no travel partners or significant upside. But outside of that, this card is awesome in terms of the flexibility and the high upside from the multipliers. Next up, I wanted to discuss some smaller credit union credit cards. As a full disclosure, I do not have any credit union credit cards myself, so I'm not speaking from personal experience, and I'm going to keep my thoughts here pretty general and broad and not specific to one card. Credit union credit cards do not get a lot of coverage on YouTube in general, but a lot of them can be pretty underrated. So I'd recommend checking out Sledge or Josh Butler's channels to learning a little bit more about those. But as an example, Josh Butler talked about the Abound Credit Union Platinum card in one of his videos, which has a $0 annual fee, but it gives you 5% cash back on all gas station purchases, so it can right away be your dedicated card in that category. In general, there's a lot of hidden value from those smaller credit union credit cards, and some of them have pretty unique point earning structures as well. So I definitely recommend diving a little deeper on which cards could make sense for you here. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to generalize this across all smaller credit union cards, but I'm going to put them in the A tier just because there's a lot of hidden value from credit union credit cards, with the main downside just being that sometimes the application process can be a bit different as well, with additional steps that need to be taken. Now we're starting to get towards the end of this video, but let's take a look at the Fidelity Visa card, which has a $0 annual fee. The point earning structure is pretty straightforward because you'll be earning 2% cash back on all purchases. However, with that cash back, you're actually going to get a decent amount of flexibility in terms of the Fidelity reward points that you're going to be earning. And one redemption option would be to get a cash deposit straight into one of your Fidelity investing accounts. In terms of my ranking, I'm going to put the Fidelity Visa card in the B tier because I do think it's a solid card with a straightforward earning capability that can work in tandem with an investing account. Now I left maybe the worst for last because now we're going to discuss store credit cards, excluding the Kroger card because I think that card is actually good. Store credit cards can definitely be tempting, but you want to be careful because they can also be a trap. The reason that I say this is because instead of earning some sort of points or cash back from the points that you were spending on a particular card, when you spend on a store credit card, you are typically just earning some sort of in-store currency, which limits your flexibility on using those rewards actually how you want to. This can be a slippery slope because since all of your rewards are tied to that one particular store, it basically forces you to just continue to come back even if your money could be spent way better somewhere else. In general, I think store credit cards can lead to lifestyle inflation, so I'm going to put them in the dumpster tier because I think there's a lot of potential harms and not too many benefits when you think of how many other great cashback credit cards there are. Okay, I know that was a lengthy video, but did I miss any cashback credit cards that you were hoping to see? And if so, what did I miss? If you enjoyed this video, then go watch this other video where I ranked every single credit card that I personally have. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.